and welcome to another Press Start Australia preview, this time talking about Resident Evil 4 Remake. James, of course you went to go play this. The Resident Evil... I mean, it would have been anyone else. You wouldn't have allowed it. You are the biggest Resident Evil fan I know. How did you find Resident Evil 4 Remake? I know you're very excited for it.
So I want to clarify that it's a hands-off preview before we get started. But
you went and saw it. Come on,
but I don't want to pretend that I played it when I didn't, and then I don't know. Anyway, so very fortunate to be able to watch some longer bits from the trailer they recently released. So it was like split into, I guess, 3 segments. The first one was more about the village and the lake. The second one was inside the castle with Salazar, who's like the bad guy for like the middle of the game. And then like the last bit was the boss battle with Krauser, which like is relevant, like significant. I'll tell you why, I guess, later. But yeah, like I think there were 3 bits that kind of really illustrate how the game is different and how the tone is different compared to like the original game. So yeah, like, I mean, I'll open with like the stuff that happens at the beginning, the lake and stuff. In the original game, like, you went out into the lake, fought a monster, and then the story progressed and you moved on. But in this one, like, you can kind of see with Leon, he gets in a boat and then he can travel around and like visit little, like, not settlements, but like little jetties and stuff and do some extra exploration. Similar to how they made Village more open, this is much more, I guess, like, open than the original game was. Without ruining like the pacing or the spirit of it, you can just keep going if you want, or you can go and explore more. So I'm always keen for more exploration in these games, like especially 4, because it was more action heavy. So just giving like the player like space to breathe and kind of look around and take it all in, because this is much more atmospheric than the original. I think like even people who haven't played it before will attest to that. I just think it looks great and everyone should buy it.
Did you feel it like adding to the kind of
I think it does. Like, do you mean like the whole?
Well, it's kind of breaking the pace, I would have thought. But like the fact that it's atmospheric, that's kind of a bit slower, allows the player to kind of take their time a bit more with it. Do you think that was actually making valuable contributions to the way it played out?
I think so. I think in this section, yes. Like, I can't really speak for other sections where they might have expanded it, but here,
sure,
there's a little bit more to do before you go out and continue, I guess, with your main mission.
I suppose it sounds more akin to what we've like come to expect from more recent Resident Evil games.
Yes, it feels closer to 8, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Or even like 2 and 3 in terms of the way, not necessarily like this one location you're like moving around a lot. It's more just like there's just more time, I guess, for the atmosphere to sink in and stuff. But like I feel like with this especially, a lot of it is, this bit in particular always took place at night, but even so, some of the bits that take place during the day are also now at night. Like, there's a lot of stuff they've moved to make it more horror tinged, I guess. Like, it's still going to be actiony. You can tell that by looking at the trailers and stuff of the stuff that is still in there. But yeah, overall, like, I think like this particular part of the preview was really cool because I do feel like that they're expanding it in like more like meaningful ways, I guess, not just cutting shit, which I think a lot of people were worried about from Resident Evil 3, like coming off 3 Remake, which was obviously the last remake. So
my favorite one so far,
which like is so shocking to me, but it's fine. Yeah.
I want to ask, you tweeted earlier today that Leon was your least favorite Resident Evil character.
Really?
Does this do anything to change that opinion? Do you feel like that might change?
I mean, watching this preview
around
doesn't, but I don't know. I do feel like this is the best version of Leon. I find like and I like that Capcom has kept the same actor from 2. I mean, that's what I look for in all my protagonists. I guess like going like talking about that like seriously for a moment, I do, if we were to like fast forward through this video to the bit where he gets to the castle and he's talking to the bad guy, there still is that kind of like that like kind of charming corny humor that was in the original game. It's not as corny, but like it's still there, and I think a lot of people were worried about that with like a remake of 4 because it was very cheesy. And like and very like action movie star kind of vibes. But I think a lot of the more problematic pieces of dialogue will be removed. But overall, like it definitely still has that same vibe and feels the same. So.
Does it like feel kind of more seamless in comparison then to like the remake of the second game and to 3? Like
it's hard though, because I mean, if you guys are watching like the second video in this collection, like you'll see the villain. Like I don't know if you've got him up on your screen.
Don't worry, I will have the footage inserted.
No, I know, but like but if you were to look at that, and there's no way you can make that as like work the same way, and that's why I'm almost surprised that this works so well, like with the more realistic kind of look of RE Engine and stuff. But then having all of these like really goofy and garish,
with
like,
it looking
villains,
realistic.
Like, do you know what I mean? But looking realistic, and that's in the original. Like he was this like really small guy, like in a castle with a pirate hat on, and in this they've kind of reimagined him to have like that like aristocratic powdered wig, and he's got like the veins all over his face and stuff. He just looks more real, even though it's ridiculous. Like I don't know how to explain it, but like I think they've done a really good job.
You know what it reminds me of? Mr. Burns when he's a vampire in the episode.
Now you've like ruined it. But
do you want me to insert a shot of that in here?
Definitely like put up a comparison for fans. But even like I just the cutscenes play it really well, and I have a really good feeling about this now. Like, I already did, but seeing these things in action, it definitely melts my butter.
I love it.
James, I haven't played Resident Evil 4 before. And looking at this, I'm like, there's so much going on. I'm like, I thought I knew everything I knew about Resident Evil already, but this, like you were just talking about, there is that like goofiness and campiness and stuff to it. Coming off of like Resident Evil 7 and 8, like if those were my most recent experiences with the series, would I like this?
Yes, I think you still would. I think at its core, the gameplay is the same. Like it's still ammo management. It's still tense. There's still like you travel from moment to moment and see these different types of like horror, I guess. I think you can still enjoy it. Like it's still one of the most enjoyable standalone Resident Evil games. Like it doesn't really require any prior knowledge of the 1, 2, or 3. I know what you mean though. I remember when this was first announced, like back on the day when you only had the internet and like there was no like constant stream of information. Like everybody thought it was fake because these scans leaked from a Game Informer and people thought it was just all made up because it was so like outlandish.
Like these could all be from different Resident Evil games. Like you'd believe that.
100%.
Like it just looks, like it's jumping all over the shop.
He's like roundhouse kicking and suplexing people. Like
I mean, but the story-wise, that was always meant to be the point. Like Leon's been through all this shit, and now he's like part of some kind of he's seen it all, so he's like more prepared.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people like Leon so much as well. I think this is the first game they played. I think they have a soft spot for it as well. But yeah, I 100% think still you can enjoy this without having played the previous one, like without having played the original, I should say. Sorry, because like I said before, the tone and like the atmosphere it has been brought more in line with Village. Lady D at the end of the day, she's super corny. Like I don't think she was deadly serious. You know what I mean? And the way she like cackled at you while she was flying around the castle and stuff, like it was all, and like Heisenberg especially. At the end of Village, like there was so much of it was still quite corny and campy, and that's still here.
Like even 7, like if you the first kind of hour, 2 hours, feels quite gritty, I suppose, but it does very quickly get outlandish and ridiculous in its own right. And so I don't take any issue with that at all.
But just to be clear, this isn't really scary. Not even though Village sort of only had a few smaller like scary
I would
bits.
say
Like
it's the same as Village, like closer to Village than 7. Like I don't know. There's nothing like Beneviento. I would be surprised if there was something like that in here. Maybe there will be. Who knows? But like there is nothing like that. There are moments though that are pretty tense. Like if you were to go through, there's a battle in this footage where Leon's fighting a Gyarados, which is like an enemy that's blind. And they just walk around really slowly, breathing like super heavily, but they can't see you, so you have to kind of sneak around them. But if you don't, they claw your fucking head off or something. So there's like there's moments like that are like pretty like horror tinged. Like I like to say horror tinged a lot, but like that's what it is. But like Village, I think you're going to be in and out of these bombastic action set pieces, and then like some more like quieter horror-y moments. There's even like there's a bit where Leon's sneaking around with Ashley, and he comes up to one of the guards in the church, like the altar, and you see this monster like burst from his like neck and stuff, and that's like very cool, very body horror-ish. And even like there's one where a spider, I think it's from the trailer, I don't think it's from this footage, but a spider latches on and like digs its legs into the back of something and then augments one of the guards. It's just like, it's gross, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't,
it's
like
a very
I said,
different kind of brand of humor of horror I'm expecting from the remakes versus like if Resident Evil 9 was to be announced, I'd be expecting it to be a bit more kind of terrifying, I suppose, than these remakes would be. I don't know if that's just by nature of it sort of being an older game transposed into a modern telling, but there is kind of a degree of separation for me between the new Resident Evil games versus these remakes.
I don't think people get that. Like, especially, like, the newer ones are all first person too, which also helps quite a bit in the immersion factor.
Of course, yeah.
But I do think you'll still have a lot of tension here. There's bits they could definitely, like, rework to be a bit more horror-ish as well. But I think watching some of the preview footage from when Kieran played it a while ago and some of the stuff that I've seen now, like, there were bits where, like, I was, like, a little bit like, ooh, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I was actually... like, this is pretty, like, scary, kind of, because you're walking through the dark and it's really quiet and stuff. Yeah. Whereas you didn't get any of that in the original. So, like, I think they're definitely taking some steps to make it a little bit more horror-ish.
And I do love that, like, within each of these remakes, like, even going to the combat in this, and Kieran mentioned, like, the roundhouse kicks and, like, all the melee additions that they've added to this, and the kind of dodging as well when you're fighting crowds are, like... I love that there's still this progression to the remakes and these, introduction of new mechanics, much in the same way I imagine that the games did when they were first released. But I like that for how quickly that we're getting these remakes, they haven't just taken kind of one mechanic set and just kind of applied it retroactively to each of these games. They've kind of kept that progression still.
It does feel, they all do feel distinct from each other. And that's how they were. I mean, I would say they're doing a better job of that now than, say, they did back then. Like, 2 and 3 were almost very similar, the way it played.
Right.
But with the 3 remake, like, you obviously have the dodge and stuff, and that played quite a lot into the combat. It's a bit more actiony, but still. Yeah. With this, that you have Ashley, obviously, and I probably should talk about Ashley quickly. I know a lot of people hated her in the original game, because a lot of the game is escorting her around. They made a point to talk about in this how she isn't... I don't think she's killable. I think she can be incapacitated now, but, like, you have to get her up to move on. But, like, she can't just die, because that could happen a lot in the original game, and that would be very frustrating. Right. Yeah. She also, in the footage we've got, you'll see when Leon aims, she kind of moves Leon tells her to get out of the way, and she moves to the side and gets out of the way. Like, that's great. I feel like... And Capcom's very, like, self-aware of things people hate about their games, and they always try to, like, I guess, do better next game.
I imagine a lot of the people working on these remakes are fans of the original.
Well, the director of this has worked on Resi 1 onwards, like, he's been there since the beginning, so, like, he would be aware of, like, what was good and what was bad. But I like the parrying. I don't know if you guys realize this, but they've added parrying into this now. All of your knives have durability, but to kind of counter that, you can now parry shit. And I think that dovetails really nicely with the Krauser battle at the end of this footage, which kind of shows, I guess, how far we've come with games. Like, in the original game, it was just about 10 QTEs in a row. You know what I mean? You had to get them all right, otherwise you die, start again. But now this whole battle is actually a battle. Like, you're actually fighting him with a knife and parrying him and trading blows. Like, I think that's a really cool evolution of what the original thing was. You actually get to do all those cool things that you could do in the QTE now. Yeah.
I like it. As a relative newcomer to the Resident Evil verse. I'm stoked that I'm getting to experience these games and that they are kind of consistently bringing them out. James just hates that I said that.
The reverse.
The RE-verse, if you will. Yeah.
Good
I
old
didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
You don't have long to wait now, James. I imagine we'll be waiting your review for your final thoughts on the game. But thank you for sharing your preview with us today.
No problem, Yui. Anytime. Always down to clown with Resident Evil.